Okay, let's start with a very easy topic, target costing, to boost your confidence. Remember, what I'm going to do in each chapter is going to be supplemented by the kit questions. So some of the points which I didn't explain when I'm giving introduction to a chapter, they will be covered in questions. My personal opinion is the best way to learn is to learn through questions. Okay, we have target costing. You saw this in F2 level as well, in alternative costing chapter, but in F2 level there was no numerical questions on it. You only needed to understand the concepts. In F5 level, those chapters that were in alternative costing, each of those topics have a separate chapter here. So one of those alternative costs was target costing. Remember, alternative means some substitute, something that can be used instead of other thing. So target costing is alternative costing of cost plus pricing. Remember, cost plus pricing means finding the cost of a product, adding a profit to it to find the selling price. This is what people did in the past. Conventionally, this is how price was found. But in the past, there wasn't a lot of competition. Power was with the suppliers, so they were charging whatever they wanted to charge. Obviously, in today's world, where there's competition, we have different prices offered by different suppliers. We cannot charge whatever we want to charge. So the starting point should be the selling price. So whenever we want to start selling a product, or even whenever we are starting a business, the first thing we should have in mind is what is the selling price of the product that we are selling. Okay, so the reason for using target costing is because of increased competition and the power shifted to the customers rather than with the suppliers. Whenever there is monopoly in some of the regions of the countries, suppliers usually charge higher price, and customer don't have any choice but to purchase at that price. Okay, remember, target costing is complete opposite of cost plus pricing. In target costing, in cost plus pricing, first is cost, then profit, then selling price. Target costing is complete reverse. First is selling price, then is profit, and then is cost. So let's look at the steps of target costing. First thing is to identify selling price. Okay, selling price is the price that people are willing to pay. If your product is existing product, which means it is already in the market, there is another supplier that is selling the product, you could look at that competitor's price. Or if your product is a new product which doesn't exist in the market, you should look at the price of a very similar product. There will be a product that will be very similar to your product being a little bit better or worse than that product. So you can decide price according to that. Let's assume we have a company ABC, the selling price, we have done market research, we have done survey, and we believe that we will be willing to sell the product at 150. Remember, this thing doesn't change. It might come in MCQs that changing the selling price. This is the whole idea of target costing. The selling price doesn't change. And usually the selling price that we have decided will have a certain quantity in mind. Usually when you reduce cost, quantities will increase. When you increase cost, quantities will reduce. So this 150 price that we are charging and the quantity that we have in mind, we will be able to sell those many quantities at 150 price. So this is the target selling price. Next thing we find is target cost, target profit. This is the profit that we want to earn. Maybe it is a target profit margin that we need to achieve. So whatever it is, it will be given in the question. So let's assume we want to make 15% profit on the product. That would make it 22.5 profit. So obviously we don't want to just sell the product without earning anything. We need to have profit in mind as well. Otherwise, what is the point in selling the product? Next step is finding the target cost, which simply is the difference between the target selling price and the target profit, which in our example is target selling price was 150, target cost is 22.5, and the target cost is 127.5. Now, target cost in this example here, 127.5, this is what the product should cost us. If it costs us more than 127, remember we can't increase the selling price. Selling price should not be touched. If you give that answer in your exam, the whole concept of the target costing is destroyed. So 127.5 is the price at which the product should cost us. If it costs us lower than that, we are happy about it. Next is estimated cost. Based on the components that it is using, the labor that we will be spending, the overheads and everything, we need to make an estimate of how much the product will cost. Let's assume it costs us 135. This is the estimated cost or projected cost, whatever you want to call it. As you can see here, it is more than what the product should cost us. Now, this is not where we should stop. I've seen in MCQs where they ask you that when the estimated cost is more than the target cost, we should stop. No, we don't stop. And usually the estimated cost will be higher than the target cost. So the next thing we find is target cost gap, which is the difference between the estimated cost and the target cost. In our example here, the estimated cost is 135, target cost is 127.5. So we have 7.5 target cost gap, which simply means the product costs us $7.5 more than it should. If it costs us more than it should, it doesn't mean we should stop. We should try and make efforts to reduce this cost, which is the next and final step in the target costing. This is called closing the target cost gap or reducing the estimated cost. There are a number of ways you could do that. One way you could do that is reducing the number of components. For example, you have a laptop. There are 4 USB ports. So instead of having 4 USB ports, you can have 2 USB ports. But remember, one thing, any change that you want to bring in your product, you should do that before you release it into the market. Because if you release it into the market, after that, if you're bringing any change, then customer would not like that. And they will realize it and they will not be happy about it. If you release a laptop, for example, initially with 2 USB ports, customers will not mind it as much. But if you release it with 4 USB ports and then later you decide that because of the cost, you need to reduce the components, and then it will not have a good effect. Remove non-value added features. Non-value added features are those features in a product that customers not use. A good example here I will give you is touch screen and laptop. I remember Apple removed touch screen from their laptop because it was not very practical. In tablet, it makes sense. In laptop, it doesn't make sense as much. Or another thing would be CD-ROM. Nowadays, the laptop don't have CD-ROMs because people don't use CDs anymore. Next is train staff inefficiency. Maybe remember, there is always a better way of doing things. So maybe the current way of doing things takes more time, so we are paying more to our labor, or maybe we are wasting material as well. So train in efficiency. Use new and efficient technology. Maybe the technology that we are currently using uses more electricity, more power, more material. So the new updated one would be using less. Like a good example of this I will tell you is like you have printers. Nowadays you see in TV when printers are advertised, they usually talk about how economical they are. Next, reduce bespoke components, increase standard components. Bespoke means specifically made, custom made or tailor made. Usually when something is specifically made for you, it costs more. And when you buy a component that is already in the market, the standard component, it usually costs less. The main reason behind that is the economy of scale. When companies producing in large quantity the same thing, usually the cost per unit is less. But if you're specifically asking something to be custom made for you, usually the cost of that is higher. So these are the ways we could reduce the cost gap. So let's look at a question on it. Calculate the target cost of new game and the target cost gap. Great Games, manufacturer of computer, is in the process of introducing a new game to the market and has undertaken market research to find out about customer views on the value of product and also to obtain comparison with competitors' products. The results of this research have been used to establish a target selling price of 60. Okay, this is our target selling price. Let's write that here. Target price or target selling price, whatever you want to call it, is 60 here. This is the price that company thinks it will have to sell the product at to achieve the required sales. Remember I explained, when we reduce the price, we can still sell it. If we increase the price a little bit, maybe we are still able to sell it, but not as much quantity. Cost estimate has been prepared based on the proposed product specifications. We have manufacturing cost, material, labor, machinery, ordering and receiving, quality assurance, non-manufacturing cost, marketing, distribution, after-sales services. The target profit margin for the game is 30% of the selling price. Okay, let's find target profit, which simply is the target selling price, which is 60 multiplied by 30%, which means that we will have a target cost of 60 minus 18, or you can simply take 60 multiplied by 70%, which is 100% minus 30% profit will give you 70%, 42 target cost. Now let's look at our estimated cost. We have 3.21, 24.03, 1.12, 0.23, 4.6, 8.15, 3.25, and plus 1.30. So we have 45.89, which means that it costs us more. So estimated cost equals 45.89. So that means we have a target cost gap of 45.89 minus 42, which is 3.89. So the requirement was calculate the target cost of the new game and the target cost gap. But we will also go beyond. We will try to reduce the cost gap. Remember, if they ask us how the company would reduce the target cost gap, remember some answers are general, but in some places you have to go specific. Like in this question, if they ask us, how could you reduce the target cost of the product? The first thing I will do is I will look for the costs that are higher. Like here we have labor. If I focus on this one, it is already very less. So even if I reduce it, it will not be that much. So always go for the higher cost. Like here, reduce labor cost. Remember, reducing labor cost is not a good answer. You should say how. What you could say is employ cheaper labor, maybe. If it doesn't affect the quantity, let's do that. Let's write here. Another thing I will go for is after that, quality assurance and marketing. Use alternative, cheaper source of marketing. Okay. Okay, let's look at another small questions on it. What is the target cost? A car manufacturer wants to calculate target cost for a new car, the price of which will be set at $17,950. The company requires an 80% profit margin on sales. So what is the target cost? So this is our selling price. The price of which set is 17. Okay, this is our target selling price. 17,950, and we have a target profit of 8%, which, if applied to this, becomes 1,436. That means our target cost is 17,950 minus 1,436. So without having to go through all these steps, what you could have simply done is taken the 17,950 and multiply by 92%, which is 100% minus 8% becomes 92%. So 16,514, which is the same answer here. And then there are some target costing in service industries. Remember, previously, your answer was that target costing cannot be used in service industries. But now your answer should be target cost can be used in service industries, but it is a little bit difficult to use. So a few years ago, the right answer in the exam would be target costing cannot be used. But now the right answer is it can be used. Companies are using it, but it is a little bit difficult to use in service industries. So using target costing is a little bit difficult to use in service industries. First, let's look at the qualities of service, and then we will go specifically to the qualities that make it difficult to use target costing. You can remember the mnemonic ship to memorize these. But you don't have to memorize, just understand. So you have SHIP. So S, simultaneous. What it means is that product is received and provided at the same time. For example, if you are going to a barber, you need to be physically present there for barber to give you a haircut. So it is received and provided at the same time. Heterogeneous. Heterogeneous, you could use variable as well. The quality of service is different every time. So a product can be made the same quality every time, but it is very difficult to maintain the same quality of service every time. An example again, barber, sometimes it gives you a very good haircut, sometimes it's very bad. Intangible. Service doesn't have any physical existence, so you cannot touch a haircut, for example. And then perishable. Cannot be stored. You cannot tell your barber, give me a haircut, I will take it with me, or I will take it tomorrow. It cannot be stored. And another thing extra is no transfer of ownership. Usually when you sell product, the ownership transfers from one person to another person. And in service, there isn't anything that person owns, the title of which is transferred from one person to another. But not all of these qualities make it difficult to use target costing in service industries. The qualities that make it difficult to use target costing in service industry is heterogeneous and intangibility. Because the quality of service is different every time, using a cost, same cost every time would be very difficult. So if we have a product and we have a cost for the estimated for that, it will be the same cost every time, with maybe a slight difference because of the overheads. But with service costing, it is going to be different every time. So hence, target costing would be very difficult to use here. And then intangibility. A product we could look at the components, we could break it down, we could look at the labor and everything. So we will be able to estimate its cost. But service is not something that is tangible. We could look at it, we could break it down. So these are the two qualities that make it difficult to use target costing in service industries. I have some questions from the end of the book. Let's look at those as well, so that we have extra practice. Okay, filling the blanks using the words from less A to H. Okay, so we are using these words in these blanks. Okay, target cost. How do you find target cost? Is the target selling price minus the target profit. So we have target selling price and the target profit. Cost gap. Remember the difference between estimated cost and target cost. Estimated cost and target cost, which is F and A. What might be effective ways of reducing the labor cost element in a product in order to lower expected cost toward target costs? Reducing the labor cost could be done by training them in efficiency to use less time, by updating technology, for example. If the technology is updated, they will be working faster. For example, if you give a designer a computer that is not a high quality computer, it will take more time than if you give them a higher quality computer. And maybe using lower level or cheap grade labor. Remember, if it doesn't affect the quality. Which of the following characteristics of service make it difficult to establish target cost for services? Remember, that was variability, heterogeneity, and intangibility. Put the three terms below in the correct order to represent A, target costing process, and B, traditional costing. Okay, in target costing, we have selling price, then profit, then cost. And in cost plus pricing, the opposite of this. First, we have cost, then we add profit to it to find selling price. Indicate which of the following methods can be used to move currently attainable costs closer to a cost target. Currently attainable cost means estimated cost, the cost that we currently attain. Estimated cost, currently attainable cost, so they all mean the same thing. So what it simply means, how can you reduce the cost gap? Using standard components wherever possible, yes. Okay, which of the following methods can be used to move a currently attainable cost closer to target cost? Okay, acquiring new, more efficient technology, making stuff redundant, reducing the quality of product in question. Remember, whenever you are reducing the cost of the product, it shouldn't reduce the estimated quality. So people should not think that the quality has been reduced. So we will only reduce the cost without affecting the quality of the product. So making stuff redundant is not a good option. Acquiring new, more efficient technology and using standard components wherever possible. So these two will be correct. So in my opinion, both of them are correct. But acquiring new, more efficient technology, standard components, yeah, both of them is correct actually. I will select both. You will notice that one, but remember they can make mistake. So using standard components wherever possible, don't use bespoke components, and acquiring more new efficient technology as much as possible. So I will attach the link, a document in the link to the video. Okay, this is it.